Good evening and welcome to tonight's live virtual program from the Howell Carnegie District Library. I'm Jamie from the Adult Services Department, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. I have a few housekeeping items to share before we start the presentation. Tonight's program is scheduled to run until 7:30. During the program, all attendees will be muted, so please share any questions for the presenter or report any technical issues you may have in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat throughout the program, and our presenter will also be trying to check in and answer questions. If you have any technical issues, we'll handle that there. After the presentation, we'll address as many audience questions as we can before the program ends. Also, don't forget to visit our website, www.howelllibrary.org, to discover more upcoming events from the Howell Carnegie District Library. Tonight, we have Asmaa Walton speaking about the Black Art Library. Asmaa Walton is a Detroit native, arts educator, and ardent developer of the Black Cultural Archive. Asmaa completed a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Art Education from Michigan State University in 2017. Upon earning a Master of Arts in Art Politics from NYU in 2018, Walton joined the Toledo Museum of Arts as an education and engagement intern. In the same year, she was appointed the museum's first Key Bank Fellow in Diversity Leadership, a position where she identified opportunities for diversity and equity programming across museums and cultural institutions. In 2019, Walton was appointed ROMERO BEARDEN Graduate Museum Fellow at St. Louis Art Museum. In February 2020, she established Black Art Library, a collection of publications, exhibition catalogs, and theoretical texts about Black art and visual culture intended to become a public archive in a permanent space in Detroit. So without further ado, I will let Asmaa take it away. Oh, I'm sorry, Asmaa.
All right, thank you. All right, my cat decided to get off of my lap so I can do my presentation. Okay, thank you guys for having me this evening, and I'm looking forward to kind of sharing a little bit with you about my journey to create Black Art Library. So first, I'm going to make sure that I can share my screen and I don't think that's the way I want to do that. That looks confusing. So I'll do it this way. All right, so Black Art Library was something that I started kind of as, it wasn't necessarily a hobby, but it was something that I was doing kind of on the side of working at the St. Louis Art Museum. It kind of came about because I had a few different interests. I always had an interest in Black art. I started to get really interested in art books. I thought they were a really good way to kind of learn about art and be able to see art if you couldn't get to a museum or get to a gallery to actually see it in person. I feel like art books, they have very great photos of the work. The colors are always amazing, and I feel like that's the next best thing, to be able to see it in person. So when I created this project, I wasn't too sure about what I wanted to do with it per se. I wasn't really sure about what the direction was that I wanted to go in. So I decided that I would just start an Instagram account for it so people can kind of follow along on the journey as I figured out what it was that I was actually going to do with this library and with these books. I just decided to start by art books. So anything I had to do with Black artists or books that were created by Black artists, or even books that were illustrated by Black artists. I was just gonna start buying them, and I was gonna figure out what to do with them later. By having an Instagram account, people were able to kind of see what I was collecting. They were able to, you know, comment on maybe this was a book that they had or a book that they were happy that they saw. Were able to ask me questions about books that I was posting, or just any general questions that they might have. I was making myself available to be able to help people in any way. When I first started the collection, it pretty much was just books that I had from my own personal book collection. I decided that, okay, well, I'm just gonna make this kind of donation to this project that I'm doing. So on the left, you see 5 books, and those were all books from my own personal collection that I had accumulated over the last few years. A few of them were purchased by friends, like as birthday gifts, but they were all books that I knew would be like a great addition to what I was trying to do. And then the other 2 books on the right were actually the first 2 purchases I made specifically for this project. The first one being the orange book at the top, which is Buford Delaney, a retrospective, which is a catalog from his 1970 exhibition at the Studio Museum in Harlem. I was able to find this online. I think I found it on Books, which is just a used online book reseller. A lot of different places and even used bookstores sell their books through there. And I found it for $50. It was in like new condition, and I was super excited that I found it. And I think that really motivated me to want to keep going and keep trying to find some of these books that I might not be able to find anywhere else, or that, you know, people might have forgot even existed, or they were out of print and you couldn't really find them anywhere. Those were the books I was really excited to find, but also new books and other types of books that I kind of came along during that time. So when I actually started this project, I was still living in St. Louis, finishing up a fellowship. And when that concluded in August 2020, I had the plan to move back home to Detroit. And a little bit before I moved home, I was approached by an artist that is from Detroit. His name is Tony Rave. And he kind of just reached out to me on Instagram through a message and said that, you know, you should bring like your library to this space that I have. And it pretty much is a house that he purchased that he wants to turn into a space for artists to have somewhere they can come grab something to eat, somewhere they can rest, somewhere they can maybe do some work. But at this point, it wasn't renovated, you know, at all. So it was pretty much just like an empty house. But he said, you can maybe let's pick a weekend and you can set up your library and it can be, you know, a pop-up version of it. So I decided to go on Facebook Marketplace. I bought some bookshelves, which are these 2 bookshelves that are in the back. They're actually, I bought 3 of them. They're really nice wooden rolling bookshelves. I bought those, and then I bought this really large wooden table, which is also a beautiful table. I bought 2 of those. I was like, okay, that's gonna be my furniture. I got like a rug and some little small stools because I wanted it to kind of feel, you know, kind of comfy and kind of, you know, homey. And he also had a set of pews that were already in the house that you can see kind of behind me. And we set those up too. So we kind of just put everything together, and I was able to kind of set up all the books I had at that time. And that was the first really in-person experience that people were going to have, to see the books and really see them in person and actually hold them and open them. Everything before that had just been me sharing what I was collecting through Instagram. So it was a really nice experience to be able to have it like in person, actually see it together. I think at this point I had maybe about 300 books that I had collected in that, let's see, from February to September. Maybe about 250, maybe a little under 300, but I had actually collected a lot of books in that short amount of time. Some of those books were also donations. Maybe about in April 2020, people actually started to ask me, you know, do you accept donations? Like, can we send you books? And I had never actually thought that people would be interested in donating books or donating to this project. So of course I was like, well, yeah, I'd love that. So I got some really, really great donations over that time as well that have helped build up the collection. So from this opportunity, I was afforded another really great opportunity, and that was to exhibit this project at the Museum of Contemporary Art Detroit. So I had a friend that visited the pop-up, and he reached out to the curator at MOCAD and told her that she should visit the pop-up. But she actually was out of town, so she said, well, let's maybe set up a meeting the following. And when she reached out, and when I actually got to meet with them, she told me that they had an opening in their exhibition schedule and that they would really love to have Black Art Library there. And this was really exciting because I never really knew the direction I was going to go with this project, and this kind of opened like a new door of exhibiting this project in art spaces, which, you know, my background was already working in museum and in the arts, so it was kind of exciting for me to know that that was a possibility. So they kind of set this up by building these kind of shelves on the wall, and they use them to kind of put the books in. So I believe this is just one side of the room. So there were about 5 of these, actually maybe about 7 of these shelves kind of built in. And then they put 2 tables in there with 2 chairs each. So you could just go, you know, pull a book off of the shelf, have a seat at the table, and, you know, look through and browse. And then they also provided me with some really cool, here they are, some library shelves that they had found. And, you know, after you finish looking at the books in the space, you just put them back on the cart. And they actually, that was a way that they were kind of, you know, figuring out a way to kind of sanitize the books. They were just leaving them there for 24 hours before they put them back on the shelf, just to reduce the amount of people that were, you know, touching the books, because this was still at a point where we're trying to figure out kind of protocols for COVID. So it was, I thought that was a really cool way to kind of, you know, to be mindful of that. And they also let me keep these library cards afterwards. So I do still have them, and I really love them. And after my exhibition at the Museum of Contemporary Art, I had an opportunity to exhibit the library at a gallery in Cleveland called Spaces. And this was new because this was actually, I guess it was a joint exhibition. So the artist, his name was Davon Brantley, and Black Art Library was kind of more so in conversation with his work in the gallery. I was really excited to kind of see how it would come together because it was something new. And they called the show Art History because Davon pulls a lot from art historical kind of references in his work. And, you know, that he's heavily influenced by a lot of different Black artists that he's been able to learn from. So one thing I love about Spaces Gallery is that they don't do the whole like white wall thing. They let the artists decide what color wall they might want to have for their exhibition. So Davon picked this color because it went nicely with his work. And I really love the way that they displayed, you know, Black Art Library's logo on the wall with his name. As you can see, the library cart is there again, and that was kind of right when you entered. And then the other photo is one that was, I believe that was next to one of his works. Yes. So his work was obviously was the main kind of attraction, but I love the books being there to kind of support his work and to be another aspect of the exhibition that people could engage with. Another thing I really loved about his work is that these are drawn directly on the wall. So he asked them to, leave a white square, and he would, he came in a few different nights and drew that right onto the wall. And I thought that was a really different approach, and I loved it when I finally got to see the finished piece. So this is just another view. I believe there were about 4 shelves, and 4 shelves, and then 2 library carts that had books on them for the library. Here's a few more of Devon's pieces, which I really love. I think, sorry, that's my cat. She's part of the presentation. And then they also included this sitting area because it was the same thing. We like making it kind of like cozy so people were comfortable. You could grab a book and sit down. Actually, in this area, they had actually, I think all of the children's books, which made sense because it also was a lower shelf. But I really love the children's books too, so they're not just for children. So this next photo, well, this one is supposed to be next, so I'll go back to that one. So I actually just opened an exhibition in San Antonio at Blue Star Contemporary, which is an art space they have there. And I was really excited because this was the first time that the library was going to be outside of the Midwest. And I think that was, once I started showing it in different spaces, I always had the idea that, I wanted it to go a little further than just like Michigan and Ohio. So I was really excited when they reached out to me about wanting to have the library there. And they just kind of sent some installation photos over to me yesterday. So it was my first time seeing it. And this is actually my favorite installation of the library so far. And I think that's because the books are, outward facing, so you can actually see all of the covers when you walk into the space. And they're not all on the shelves, but majority of them are. They do have their own kind of carts that they have some of the books on. As you can see one right there, but it's really nice to actually be able to see them because the books themselves are also the art. They have the art in them, but even the covers, I love being able to see them kind of all at once. So I was really, really excited to see those, and just excited that the project has been able to travel somewhere else. And this is specifically in, it's called their education lab. So it's actually a separate space from their gallery spaces. And it's so fitting that this project is actually in this space. So I really, really love that. And then I think down here, it's just, I always, so the Instagram is the best way to actually get in contact with me. I run the Instagram. So if you have any questions or want to donate a book, or just are you looking for a specific book, I always ask questions there. But my email is also just asmawalton@gmail.com. If you ever want to reach out to me that way too. Okay, and now I have to get back to the screen. All right, so that is it for my presentation, but I wanted, well, that's it for my slide presentation. But I did want to share a few of books that I have from the collection that are some favorites, and then a few like recommendations for really cool books that I think people should, get their hands on if they want to learn a little bit more. Okay, so this one, it's kind of a big one. And I don't even know if you can tell how big this book is in comparison to, let's see, I guess I can hold it up to another, like, this book is pretty big too. So if you can kind of see how it's very, very large. So this book is, this isn't an early one that I got in the collection. I think I ended up getting this. I did buy it in 2020. But it's The Art of Romare Bearden. So I'm a huge fan of Romare Bearden's work. And I also feel like connected to Romare Bearden in a special way because the fellowship that I received at the St. Louis Art Museum is named after Romare Bearden. And he was an artist that was very big on advocating and helping other artists. So he's one that I love. And I do want to show, let's see, I'm looking for some of the image. A lot of these images in this book are in black and white. But there are some in here that are in color. So he did a lot of collage work. So that was the primary way he created. And I just thought his collage work is super dynamic. So I love Romare Bearden. He's such a really like a giant when kind of talking about Black art. Another book that I'm really happy that I have in the collection is, this book is by Henry Taylor, and it's actually called, the name of it isn't on the front, it's actually on the back, but it's The Only Portrait I Ever Painted of My Mama Was Stolen. So that's the name of this book. So Henry Taylor is an artist that is still living now, still working. And I really love the art that he creates. So he is a painter. So this was a book that was really difficult to find because they only did one printing of it. And, after it was sold out, it was sold out. So then all the people that had copies started, selling those for hundreds of dollars. So this book was at least like 300 or more like online. And that was if you could find a copy. There weren't that many copies on there, but someone actually reached out to me and they're like, hey, like I saw you said that you don't have this one in the collection. I could send it to you. And they sent it to me and I was surprised. It actually was a brand new copy. It was still in the plastic. But that's kind of one thing that I've noticed. Like a lot of people do have these books and they buy them, but sometimes they don't look at them. They just kind of stay on a shelf. So that's why a lot of the time people that donate things, they're glad to do so because it's a way that other people can actually, see the books and can actually learn from them. And it's not just being wasted on a shelf. So another book that's like a really important book in the collection is this book right here. So this book is called 2 Centuries of Black American Art. So this was actually an exhibition at, I want to say it was at LACMA, at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. And it was 1976. And it was an exhibition curated by David Driscoll, who is an artist, art scholar. and curator who just passed away. I want to say maybe it was 2 years ago now. But this exhibition was extremely, extremely important to Black art, and Black art kind of being exhibited in these spaces. And it was the first real exhibition of its kind. Actually, there's an HBO documentary that just came out last fall. I believe it's called In the Absence of Light. And it's kind of centered around like this exhibition and this book. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you have a chance. This was another one of those books. So I actually bought, so this is my personal copy. The other copy is somewhere else where my books are being stored. But the copy I bought from the library, I bought it for $8 on eBay. And after the documentary came out, it seemed like the prices of the book kind of skyrocketed. After that, I saw people selling the book for like $1,000, like anywhere from like $500 to $1,000. It's still actually priced pretty high, and it's just not, it's starting to go down a little bit, but I wanted to find a copy for myself. So luckily I was able to find one, and it was, I think I bought this for about $100, which is still like 10 times more than what I paid for the other copy, but I am glad that I was able to get it. Sorry, I'm kind of looking awkwardly out of the camera because my cat is climbing on things. And then I do have a few kind of recommendations for books that you could probably pick up if you're interested. Some of these are more recent. Most of these are more recent books, so they're easier to get your hands on. So two of these are edited by Antoine Sargent. So this one is called The New Black Vanguard. So this was a photography exhibition. It's actually at the Detroit Institute of Art right now, and I think it's going to be open through this spring. But it's a very beautiful exhibition. Antoine Sargent is a curator. He's a gallery director, and I really love everything that he does. And another one that's also edited by him that I recommend. This one is not primarily photography. So this one is Young, Gifted, and Black. This one is more about newer artists. So this was actually someone's kind of personal collection that was able to be kind of documented in this way. It's a really, really amazing book. And it's also amazing that like someone owns all of these works of art, but it's a couple that really value buying art from young artists and artists that are still living. So I definitely recommend checking this one out. One more this is a pretty new book, and it's called Black Artists Shaping the World. So it's not a kid's book per se, but it's kind of geared towards like younger audiences could be able to read it. It's not, you can kind of see, it's not a whole lot of text. It's like, maybe I would say middle school age and up might enjoy this book. And this book is one of the few books that I found that actually talks a lot about contemporary artists that are still working right now. Sometimes you don't really always hear about those artists. And there's some of my favorites that are in here. Kehinde Wiley is mentioned in this book. Carrie Mae Weems is mentioned in this book. Amy Sherrill, actually, if you see, when Amy Sherrill did the Michelle Obama portrait, and Kehinde Wiley did the Obama portrait. But there's some really, really great artists. Faith Ringgold, I really love Faith Ringgold. And let's see, one more that I really love, I can find the page. Oh, Kerry James Marshall, he's also one of my favorites. And I like that they show you like a photo of the artist too, because sometimes you don't really know what the artists look like, even if you've heard their names a bunch of time. Let's see, oh, here it is. So Nick Cave, who actually went to Cranbrook. So he has a connection to Michigan, which is really cool. And he creates these like sound suits, which I really love. And this book is about 20 bucks. It's definitely a good purchase. I love this one. And one more book that I kind of recommend if people are just interested in getting some new books is this book right here. So this book is called The Ultimate Art Museum. So what's cool about this book is that it is a whole museum visit, like inside a book. So let's see if I can kind of check. This one is a children's book, but I love children's. So as you can see, it's one ticket, and then you can open it here, and let's see if I can open both sides. When you open it, you can see all of the galleries that are in the museum, and it tells you, you know, what pages to go to find what you might be looking for. So just like a regular museum, it has all of the different areas that you might look for. This book is not just about Black art, but this book is written by a Black woman. Her name is Farron Gibson. And she's someone who I am friends with. And this book is published through Phaidon. So they actually have an adult kind of version of this book too, and I think it's just called The Art Museum. But this one is really fun. It also has a great like modern and contemporary section that does feature some Black artists. All around, it's a really great purchase, and I believe the age range for this book is ages 9 through 12. But I really feel like I enjoy. So this one is my personal copy. So I feel like it's a great book for really anyone. So those are some of my recommendations of some of my favorite books. So I guess, I guess I didn't really get a chance to check the chat while I was talking to see if there was any questions. But I do have time for any questions now, just about what I have going on next for the library. I can say that this month I do have a pop-up at the Detroit Institute of Art. Unfortunately, it's only a one-day pop-up, but it is on February 27th, and it is from 10 a.m. until, oh yes, and that is the link for it right in there. It is from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And I will have half of the collection, so about 300 of the books are still here in Michigan, about 200 or so are out in San Antonio, but that's part of the reason why I wanted to keep some of the books here so I could still be able to, you know, engage with people, and I wouldn't have to just say, well, the books are gone. So that's kind of one way that you can maybe see the project in person. I do have another talk that will be centered around women's art. So it's going to be during Women's History Month, and it's going to be with the Detroit Public Library. I don't have the link to that one yet. I don't even know if they have that up, but if you are interested, you can always like check back on their website. Let's see, I think I saw a question come in. So the question was, what book do I recommend to introduce children to art? There's one book that I have, let's see. So specifically, have to do my Google search really quick to figure out the name of this book. Yes. So specifically for introducing children to Black art, I do have one recommendation, and it's called Come Look With Me, Discovering African American Art for Children. It's a really, I love it. It's a small book. Off the top of my head, I don't know the age range, but I really feel like for any kind of young age, it's dissectable enough for if they can understand, even if they're not at a reading age themselves. But that one is a really cool one. And it's also not a new book. It's probably from, I want to say it might be from early 2000s. So it's really easy to find a copy. I think you can probably find it like on Amazon, and you also can probably find it used at different like online used bookstores. But that one is a really cool one that I like a lot. A lot of the children's books, there are some really cool children's art books, and I wonder if I can find, I think I've done a few different book lists for books on Black art for children. I don't have them off the top of my head or have the links, but I could always kind of send that over to the good people at the Howell Library, and maybe that's something that could be shared to participants that tuned in for this tonight. But I've definitely put together a few different lists for really good books, because there are some out there, but it's hard to know that they're out there if you've never really heard of them yourself. So yeah.
We can absolutely share those for you.
Awesome. So it's like I know I have multiple lists, but I do not have them right here. Awesome. All right, so do we have any more questions?
When you and I were chatting before we started, you had told me about another location that we might be able to see the Black Art Library.
Yes, so the specific details are to come, but there is a new space that is in Detroit, and it's a women's co-working space. And I have a plan to have the library there for about a month. It'll mostly be the publications that are centered around women artists, or that were, written by women, or they were exhibitions curated by women. So it'll still be a nice chunk of books, but those will be on view for a month or so. So I know it'll be beginning of March. So I'll definitely be able to share that information too, if any of you, get some time to come down this way to actually see the collection. Yes, and that is the link to the space, and I'm sure when we have the information up there, it'll be available to find on their website as well. So if you check in within the next few weeks, you should be able to find it there. And also, the very best way to kind of stay up to date on how to see like where the library is going next, or what's going on with it, is to absolutely follow the Instagram account at Just Black Art Library. That's primarily how I run all the information, just because I run this project by myself. It's easier if I'm just using Instagram. This year I am working on actually getting a website. So that'll be fun when that happens. But for right now, the Instagram is the like one-stop shop for any questions, book recommendations. Sometimes I have people that see books that I post, and sometimes I do get people that ask like, oh, is this book for sale? And I don't sell the books in the collection, but if they ask me that, I'm very happy to just quickly like do a Google search and find where wherever they can find a copy and send them the link so they can get it themselves. So I'm very accessible through Instagram for anything book related related to the library. So yeah, if that is all, thank you guys for tuning in to learn a little bit more about this project that I've been working on for the past 2 years. I'm excited to kind of keep it going and keep growing. I'm not really sure how many books I'm going to have within the next few years, but been able to get about 500 within 2 years. So I'm really excited to see if I can maybe double that within the next year or two. Thank you. And I look forward to you tuning in and be able to see some of the cool things and maybe even find some new books that you might want to grab for yourself. Alrighty then.
Thank you so much, Asmaa, for sharing about the Black Art Library.
Yeah, it's a
and
pleasure.
thank you to everyone that attended tonight's program. I'm going to share a link to a program evaluation in the chat. If you don't mind, please take a few minutes to give your feedback on tonight's program. Also, don't forget to visit our website, howelllibrary.org, to discover more upcoming events from the Howell Carnegie District Library. And if we're all, it looks like we're all set, and I'll tell everyone to have a good night. And thank you again, Asmaa. It was wonderful having you.
Thank you guys so much. Everybody have a good night and be safe out there in the icy weather.